All right, we'll start with this one.
Okay.
Maybe y'all can see that. That is actually supposed to be my great-grandfather.
Okay.
Now, that was a picture that just happened to be hanging in my house. A random picture that somebody painted, and it looks exactly like my great-grandfather.
Huh.
Which he died when I was 3 or 4. I didn't get to know much. I remember his deathbed. I could describe the comforter that had flowers on. It's yellow. It was embroidered with flowers. I could describe it to you, And I barely knew him though. Everyone told me he was, the greatest man you'd ever meet. He was actually a pastor at Red Hill Baptist in Springville, all this other stuff. And the picture my dad one day told me when I was growing up, he said, it looks just like your great granddad. It's a random picture, but it looks just like him standing in a boat fishing. And he loved to fish. Wore the same style hat and everything.
Okay.
So I got a buddy of mine. I showed him that picture, and yep, he did every bit of this. And then we have this right here. This was for my step-grandfather. It's a little Italian stallion. He was nearly full-blooded Italian. He was a part of my life, my whole life. He was there my whole life. He raised my father. And he's nearly full-blooded Italian. So I thought, what better than an inverted, full-blooded, Italian stallion rearing back. The moon's kind of, like I said, needs to be touched up. There's a moon right there, also inverted. And he's rearing back up at the moon. So that's my other grandfather. He's right there.
Yeah.
This is my other step-grandfather.
Okay.
Who was there nearly my entire life. This was actually a random picture that he had hanging in his barn. And he loved Indians. He had all kinds. He drove trains. He drove trains for a long time, and then retired from the railroad and became a railroad inspector for the government. He's got keys to trains, and he loves trains, and he loves Indians.
Yeah.
So when he passed, I decided that I don't know who that's supposed to be. I always talked about the picture and how I liked it and this and that. And my buddy's out there one day, and he said, man, you ought to get that tattooed. He straight up told me, you ought to get that tattooed on you. And I just connected with my grandfather and decided, you know what, that's actually a good idea. And so that's where that came about.
So in some ways it's images that represent people. It's not
just
the person themselves.
Yeah, it's no direct representations.
Yeah.
It's just, in my mind, things that connected them to me, really. Stuff that reminds me of him.
Yeah.
And then on to this last one. This one was my real grandfather. He was in the Navy. He was actually, during the Cuban Missile Crisis, he was on the submarine or the ship, it was a ship, that was scheduled to fire on Cuba, off the coast of Cuba.
Okay.
And that's where he had this tattoo on his right hand. Okay, well, when I was a kid growing up, we had this thing where when I went to stay at his house, he would always draw tattoos. I would take like markers, not the permanent, but the little
the washable kid.
Yeah. The little kid mark. Yeah, he would draw tattoos on us. He really would. And this is one he would. I always, for some reason, as a kid, I loved this one. He drew this one on me every single time I went.
Wow.
And right before he died, when he got real bad off, was on his deathbed, I went and got this done. And I actually have a picture of us in opposite hands like that, so the tips of the anchors are pointing at each other, and we're holding shaking hands with our anchors touching each other. We got a picture of that.
Thank you for that.
Oh, it's
an honor. And thanks for sharing your tattoo story. So it's definitely family's important.
Yeah, pretty much mine. Yes.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the only thing. I don't want to have a random thing on my body like that forever that doesn't have a meaning to me. And family's always been very, very, very important to me.
Okay.
And you mess with my family, that's like my trigger, man. Don't mess with my family.
What particularly instilled that in you? Is it through just your own upbringing with your parents? Are you close to your parents?
I'm very close to my family. Both of mine are still together and alive.
Okay.
I was blessed in that aspect. And I guess it's the way I was brought up. Yeah, it's just family's always been important. And especially in today's time, families aren't as connected. And my family, when I was growing up, every holiday, it didn't matter if it was the littlest holiday in the world, we got the whole family together. Like everybody, just for everything. My grandmothers were huge on that.
Yeah.
Especially when she died, when his wife died, we called her Nene. When she died, we did start to split a little more. She was kind of the glue. And I personally have been working on getting everybody back together and trying.
Okay.
It's been something I've been working on really hard. It's tough nowadays, but everybody's always so busy and going. Part of the problem with the world these days, nobody has time to just stop and talk to people.
Well, that's part of why I'm doing this project too.
Cell phones nowadays.
I know, yeah, it is. We're a distracted world. We're distracted people. And that's part of this project too, is just to learn how to have conversation again, how to slow down, how to listen, how to really connect with somebody.
Yeah. people don't know how to talk. They're awkward. They
Yeah.
don't know how to approach people, and it's kind of sad.
It is. It is sad.
The world we live in is full of just arguments and controversy and black or white, or I mean, just all kinds of crazy stuff that shouldn't be going on. We're one race, the human race under God. But
It's easy to say something behind a device, but it's different when you can sit down and actually sit in front of somebody.